Okay guys, in this video we're going to talk about something that is very important, which is damage. In general, dealing damage, receiving damage, reducing HP and getting affected by damage. There's a lot of people that are asking me about it, and I think there is a lot of misconception about how damage works in Unreal already and how much of it we already have and how does it work exactly. So I'll be working on the FPS Pro map and on the FPS Pro template that we have established already. So thanks to that we got weapons and we can actually shoot each other and we can have multiple characters that are interacting with each other. So let's start. Let's just make let's show what we have right now. So right now, if I play in two windows, I can be this guy, I can go pick up this weapon, I can equip it, and I can shoot this guy. And what happens is actually I am dealing damage to him, but he's not getting affected by it in any way. But he's receiving damage per se. So let's make this guy actually receive damage and do something about it. Yeah, so we go here, open the character, open it up, and this will be a very dirty way to do it, and then I will show you how to do it maybe better, more proper, but that should go in a separate video honestly. Let's make a new graph. This one will be health and damage. Okay, so right here we have health and damage, and if you go into class settings and is it in class settings or is it in class defaults? Okay, in class defaults. So this actor is a character. Character inherits from pawn. Pawn inherits from, you know, other classes. So basically you have lower tier actors that can be either, let's go here, blueprints, and let's make a new blueprint. So you can have an actor, which is the lowest level of object, or you can have U object. So U object is a very simplified actor that has a lot less options in it, and it exists in memory. It is a thing, it is an object, but it doesn't exist in the world space. So it doesn't have coordinates, it can't be moved, it doesn't have a physical representation in the gameplay world. But it is an object. When actor derives from U object, and this is an object that can be moved, can be replicated, and have a lot of other things. So absolutely every actor, like if I just do a BP new actor, so whatever actor you have, it has certain defaults, and inside those defaults, when you go here, you see actor can be damaged, and then you have initial lifespan, which can limit the lifespan of an actor. So if you are spawning some actors that you are then destroying after a delay of somehow seconds, you don't have to really do a delay. You can just do this initial lifespan, it will automatically destroy itself. You have the a lot of, you know, just default values, but the most important thing, and tags of an actor, but the most important thing for us today is this can be damaged. So basically what it means that if he can be damaged, he is implementing damage interface, and if we disable that, then he is no longer receiving damage. So let's go to our character, and our character in our class defaults, if we go into damage, he also has can be damaged, which means that he has this interface. So if I right click anywhere on this graph and I just say damage, you see that we can implement 3 events that are automatically created by this interface, and which is any damage and point damage and radial damage. So when we are receiving point damage, we actually trigger only this event. So okay, so we trigger both of those events. So we both get the event any damage and event point damage, and same goes here. If we receive radial damage, we trigger this and this. Now, why this is important? So for example, if we receive point damage, we want to implement this damage and do something with a variable that we don't yet have. So let's make a variable, we'll call it health. And health will be a float value because it will be easier to work on floats than on integers. And float that is not replicated, and then we make another float which will be health max, and this one will be exposed, so it will be public, and it will be replicated, so it will be set permanently to a certain value. And let's say that our health is 100 and our health is 100, and that's it. Okay, so now when we receive any damage at all, we got few information. We got the damage as a base value, we get the damage type, which is an object reference. So damage objects are, like we already said, objects that exist in the memory of our game, but they don't have a physical representation. But as an object, it can also have interfaces, and we'll talk about them in a second. Then we get instigated by, and this is a controller object reference. So when you deal damage, apply damage. So you can do apply damage up. Oh, let's talk about all of those in a second as well. Apply damage and apply damage with follow. So if we do just apply damage, we got just those inputs that you see here. So we got damaged actor, which is the receiver of the damage. We get the damage amount, which is just a base amount that is being pushed forward here, and we can also read this value here to do a debug string or something. And if the actor doesn't receive damage, this will actually give us 0. Then we have the instigator, which is a controller reference, and this reference can be empty, but it shouldn't be. So if we have an actor like this character, he can be possessed by AI or he can be possessed by a player, but it doesn't matter. We can still do get controller, and this pound function get controller returns us a controller, which is player or AI, doesn't matter, and push it here. And why this is important, we'll talk about in a second as well. So we can use this in all of those applied damage without problem. Now, then you have damage causer. Damage causer is the actor dealing damage. So damage causer in our example, it can be our character, so we can just make a self-reference, or it can be reference to a different object. So for example, active weapon can be the damage causer. And this damage causer is being pushed forward here, so we can, for example, display that we got killed or received damage from a certain source and put it into a log and then display to the player that was receiving the damage. But let's just set it for self for now, just to know who is instigating the damage as an pawn actor reference. And then we have the damage type class, which is, like you can see, a class, and we can put any class that is a damage type. But here, when you have damage type, it's no longer a class, it is an object reference. So this works basically like able abilities, where you create ability object from class and then push it to context. It works the same here. So you specify this damage type, and this damage type will always create a default damage type object, and this object is being pushed forward. Why this is cool, I'm going to say in a moment, but let's go through all of those events really fast. So we got apply damage, which is just applying base damage, and damage actor is just some, target. And you can see also this server icon with a lightning here. That means that this function is protected and it can be run only with authority. So only the server can trigger apply damage. So if we have, for example, my combat component that do a hit, you can use the hit to apply damage and it will just work on the server, but all the effects, particles and stuff will happen on the client as well. Okay, apply point damage gives you one more very specific information. The hit info and hit from direction. The hit from direction, you can actually even skip this one because you have the hit info, which is containing absolutely everything. And this is a standard hit event that you get from any hit event. So any line trace, any trace basically will give you a hit structure and push it forward. So when you push it forward, you get this event point damage and you have the hit info here. But you also have some values from the hit info already pushed to the event itself. Okay, where was I? Okay, so from this event, you can see that some of the hit info are already exposed here. So you get the bone name and you can, for example, do a comparison. If it's named head, then you can take the damage and multiply it by a float and do a select. And basically, if the bone name is head, then multiply it by 2. If it's not head, then multiply it by 1, and you have a headshot damage already. Simple as that. You also get the hit component, which can be used to if you have, you know, for example, a shield, there is a component, you can say that the damage is not implemented at all. So if the hit component is equal to something, right? So like an object, then you can, for example, not apply damage, like I said, and do other stuff like this. And then you have the radial damage, which is just, you know, explosions and stuff like that. And you just have one more information, which is the origin, so the source of it. And hit info contains the point where you got hit by the explosion initially. So when it actually came across your character. And yeah, and you have two apply radial damage events. One that is just applying from an origin with some radius, and it always applies full damage to all actors that get hit by it. And this radial damage with fall off is simply making this damage normalized between minimum and maximum damage based on the fall off. So the closer you are to the start, the more damage you will receive, and the far away from it, less damage you will receive, but there is a minimum. So the base damage is the maximum, the minimum is the minimum, and everything is quite self-explanatory. And there you have also like what is damage prevention. So when you get hit, when it generates the hit event that you have here, it is actually checking if there is a line of sight to your character, and if there is no line of sight, you will not receive damage. So if you are hiding from a grenade behind a wall, you will not get damage through the wall unless the wall doesn't block this particular prevention channel. So you can set prevention channel to something very specific. It can be an object type or a trace channel, or you can just leave it at visibility as it is on default. So yeah, those are deal damage, those are receive damage. So let's get our character actually receive damage and reduce health. So do we want to do headshots? Let's say that we do want to have headshots. So when we receive damage, we're getting our health, and then we are reducing our health by our damage. And then we are doing a clamp because you know what, we don't really have to do it, and set health. Oh, let's actually make it replicated, and you know what, let's actually even make it replicated with rep notify. So once it gets replicated down to our character, it will trigger a function. So we just reduce our health, and if health is below 0 or equals 0, then we want your character to die. So what we do as def, we'll just make a custom event, def, and do a do once, because we can still receive damage when we are dead, right? And just run this def event. And when we die, we want to do maybe alive, which will be a variable of boolean, and this will be replicated, and default will be true. However, we might not have actually, you know what? Yeah, let's do it differently. We don't need a value. We can make a function. We can make a new function called alive and do a return node and make an output alive, and it will say that health is above 0. Then we are alive. Okay, and oh, and this function should be a pure function. So on def, let's take our animation master and let's do ragdoll and do ragdoll start. And let's go here and make sure that our ragdoll is not broken on multiplayer, because it required some work. Yeah, I'll just disconnect this one. Okay, and also disable input. So now, okay, this happens on the server. So on the server we are reducing health, we are setting new health, we are checking if we died. If we did die, we do it just once, and our def should run on owning client really, and he will start the ragdoll, and this ragdoll will go replicated to everyone else, and he will get the, you know what, let's make it really multicast, because we need it to happen also on the server. Oh, you know what? Let's make it even differently. We'll not make it replicated at all, and we'll not do this at all, and we'll cut it out, well, this as well, and we'll go into onRep health. We'll do alive, if false then once, and here def. So rep notify by default in blueprints is replicated not only to clients but also runs on the server. So this def will trigger everywhere, basically once the health is replicated, and it will trigger def. And now disable input will only work on the server, and if we don't specify whose input, okay, get controller, cast to player controller, so if we have authority, we want to get controller, cast it to player controller, and disable this player's controller inputs. Or you know what, we don't really have to do that at all, because when you are ragdolling you can do anything anyway, so this is just enough. And receive damage, and let's make it also, like I said, receiving headshots. So let's do this equals head, and then this has to multiply by a float, which will do select, which is just true 2, false 1. Okay, I just love this auto format button. We don't need this and we don't need this. Now we need to make sure that our characters are actually receiving damage, and we'll read some of the values from here to just show you what we are receiving. So we know that our weapons are shooting bullets. We know that our bullets, if we go here, pro FPS, we have this shooting range as some projectile. So we just open this one. We know we're doing this. And where are we dealing damage? It's probably in our BP awesome projectile. So let's open it. And damage and force. Okay, so that's here. Deal damage on impact. Apply point damage. We have it here. Base point damage is base damage. So let's find where we are using this. Find reference. Okay. Base damage is incoming velocity vector length times mass. So this is how is it called? Oh my god. Okay, that will be a lot. So we need to make our character that will be like 600, 700 per bullet. So let's make our health 1000, not 100. It will work a lot better. And let's make our characters display health as well. And here we'll talk about damage interface, how it is being used as event dispatchers. So we can go into UI and we can make a new user interface widget blueprint and call it UI simple health bar. Okay, so UI simple health bar, and it will be very simple. It will just have a progress bar, and we're going to anchor it to the middle top. We're going to make it 0.5 on the X. We're going to make it position 0. And Y24, that's fine. X will be, let's say, 400. That should be enough. Alignment is fine. Style, background image, fill image. We can make it an image or we can just make it a color. So here it is a color. Let's make it red. And let's make the background image maybe like a lot darker. Okay. And we have, okay, we don't need style anymore. And inside here, like this is health bar, and it is a variable, and we have clipping here. It's fine. Where's the value? Where's the actual value? Percentage here. Okay, so 0. This is 50. Oh, sorry, 1 or 0.5. Okay, so this is how it works. Let's go back to style. Yeah, okay. Why is this the exact opposite than I would expect it to be? Well, okay, I don't know. This is fine. We just wanted to be you to be able to see this value, and let's actually add a value. So let's do text, and we'll drop text on top of it. I don't think we can. Yeah, we cannot inherit it, so we have to do just some tricks like this. Make it 0.5 and make it centered here, and make it position 0. 28, that's fine. Size 150, that's fine. 40, that's fine. Let's make this smaller, 20, or 22. Okay, that's fine. Text block. Okay, so this is the health value. And let's make it a variable. Or we can actually, you know what, we don't need it to be a variable. We're going to bind this and create a binding in a second. But first we have to go here into graph and say that when we are constructed, only when we are constructed, we don't need tick. We're not going to do any binding that works on tick and reading any values. We're going to get owner pound, get owning player pound. So we get the pound that we are that we have right now, and we're going to do valid, or nah, it's fine. We just assume that it's valid, and we're going to do bind damage, and we're going to bind event on take any damage. Okay. So we are binding now this widget to do an event, custom event, whenever we received damage, whenever we receive any damage. But we're not going to read the damage, we just wanted to know that we received damage at this point. So what we'll need is go here and yeah, because if we do event dispatcher that is specific for this class, then we need to cast our pound to this class. But pound is an actor, and actor always implements damage, so we can use those events. But now we can go into our BPI FPS Pro, and inside the character we can go and say get health. And from get health we'll need two outputs, one which is health value, and second one which will be health ratio, and they're both floats. And we go back here and say that when this happens, so we know that we receive damage, we're getting from this guy get health message, and now this ratio we can just save as a variable called health ratio, and that's fine. And the next one will be a bit tricky because we need to go to integer, and we have to floor it to integer. That's going to be better. And then this integer we're going to just we're just going to save it to string, and this string we're going to promote to value, say health, I think string, not text, but we're going to see here. So here we can do binding, and we can go directly and say just health. And in here we can go into our percentage, and we can also do binding and just say health ratio. And we don't need to do a special event, we just bind it to a variable, and whenever this variable is being changed, everything is being changed. Okay, and we just need a custom event, and this event will be called rebind UI. So if our character, for example, dies and we make a new character, so we get a new pound, we need to do this binding once more. So we just have to do this rebind. So we just need to do it like this. So this is construction, construct begin play, and this is bind in values. Let's see if it will work. So now we go back to our character, to this guy, and here inside this health and damage we're going to do one more thing, custom event, and this one will be called init health bar, and we're going to do widget, make widget. How was it? Construct, create widget. Yeah, this one. Keep on forgetting. UI simple health bar. Thank you. Owning player is get player controller, and this one needs to only be on the owner. Get owning player, no, not this one. Get player controller 0. So if we are running on owning client, that means that player controller 0 is our controller, local controller. And then we're going to say promote to variable health bar. Let's make it type health damage. Just put all of this here. So we got this health bar, and now we can do in viewport, and if it is in viewport not, then we want to add to viewport, but if it is in viewport, then we don't want to do anything at all. And then we want to get health bar and do it convert to validity check. So this is just get health bar is valid. So if it is not valid, we want to construct it. If it is valid, we want to go directly here, so into this health bar being in viewport and adding it, and this will be visible. We can do branch here. So if it has to be visible, we go through all this, and if we don't want it to be visible, then we're getting the health bar valid. If it is not valid, we don't have to do anything. If it is valid, then we need to check if it's in viewport, and if it is in viewport true, then we want to remove from parent. And if it is not in viewport, we don't want to do anything, and this is health bar. Okay, now we need to init this health bar on our possess event, not on the begin play. So this is begin play, and where is our possess? We don't have possess. Oh, we might not have, because we're not using any UI. Okay, so let's do event possess. So when we get possessed, we are assigning this spawn to a controller, so we have a valid controller at this point, and we can just do init health bar, and this will say visible, and this will just trigger on the owning client. So each client will have its own health bar, which is then binded to their own character, and will read values from this character only when it receives damage. So let's test my theory that it should work, maybe, I don't know. Let's first of all see if they have health bar. They do have health bar, both of them. Let's pick up a weapon and let's shoot this guy in the face, or in the chest first. Okay, he should receive damage and do stuff, but he didn't. But he did die properly when he receives enough damage. Okay, so let's see what happened. There are no errors, so let's see what happened. Receive damage is an event that's happening actually on the server, because we are receiving damage on the server. So let's go to our character back here into our health and damage, and let's go here and let's do it a bit differently. I mean, on the other hand, let's go here, receive damage, receive oh no, let's do it differently. bind point damage, and let's test something. I mean, receive point damage, and let's just do a print string, because I'm pretty sure when you receive point damage, receive damage should trigger as well, but maybe I am mistaken. Maybe they've changed it, or maybe it was always like this and I just mixed something up. That happens, unfortunately. So let's pick up a weapon, this time this one. Okay, this didn't do anything as well. And we don't have any valid information here. Okay, we can do it differently. Like, UI is a very annoying piece of stuff when it comes down to Unreal. A very annoying object, because it exists only on the owning client. It doesn't replicate, and even the server is not aware that it exists. It is aware of the HUD, but it's not aware of the widgets itself. So instead of doing this, we're just going to have this event receive damage, and instead we're going to make a custom event called update HP. Okay, update HP. And this one is actually just getting two inputs. One which is health, that's a float, and one that is ratio, which is a float. And health goes into health and ratio goes into ratio, and that's it. And now, because we created this widget, could not find the function. Oh yes, of course you can't, you don't need that at all now. So because when we create this widget, we are actually saving its class, so it is UI simple health. We know the class of this widget, so we can go into onRep health. Whenever we replicate health, we can get our widget, make it a valid get, and before we do all those checks, before we do anything, if it is valid, then you do update HP, and if it is not valid, then you just skip it. So it's more like this. It's gonna be ugly anyway. And what you need is just health and health and health max. So health divided by health max, and this is the ratio. Okay, test it. Now it has to work. Come on. Okay, and we got value. Oh, and by the way, when we initialize it, we need to do this as well. So just copy it, and let's go back here. Make it a event. Update HP values. Paste it. Get health, valid health. Okay, that's it. Update HP UI. We go back to our rep notify health, and we don't need this. Update HP values, and just push forward to this. And now update HP values we're going to do in one more place, so health and damage. And once we add to viewport, we're going to do update HP values. That's the only place where we need it, really. So now when we start the game, we'll get those values updated. Let's take a gun and let's shoot this guy first in the chest. Okay, he received like 163 damage. Let's shoot him in the head. He should receive over 300 damage. And so he did. But we can still continue shooting at this guy and he can receive more damage. So his health bar can go even lower, but that doesn't matter because he's dead already, and we can start doing respawn and other stuff which is important for us, gameplay mechanic wise. So this is how you manage damage from health. What else is there? Oh, okay. There's something really cool about it. For example, you want to do combat text when you receive damage, but you want to also do combat text when you deal damage. And now there is a problem. If you want to implement combat text wherever you deal damage, you will deal damage here, you will deal damage in other projectiles, you will deal damage in melee swings, you will deal damage in multiple places. So how can you aggregate it into one place? Very simply. We just go here, here, go into blueprints and to our AGR player controller. And inside player controller we got a special event which is called instigate event receive instigated any damage. That's a mouthful, really. So this saying, my guy, whoever he is, wherever he is, if my controller is an instigator and he dealt damage, this is the pure amount of damage that he is dealing, this is the damage type, this is the damage actor, and this is the damage causer. So I can do stuff here inside the controller. So if we go into our awesome projectile and we have those deal damage, we go here and we do apply point damage. And in our event instigator, so controller object reference, we get this instigator controller, and instigator controller is taking owner of owner of owner of owner of objects in the ownership ladder until he hits a controller. So once he hits a controller, he knows that this is the controller that is responsible for all actions in all objects that are owned by this controller in this tree of authority. So this bullet should inform our controller that we dealt damage. So let's test it. Let's do a print string, which will just give us an information about the damage. And just so we don't get too much trash information on screen, we're going to go into our weapon. So HRAG examples, blueprints, FPS Pro, our template weapon, and we'll find this pesky print string. Oh no, it's not here, so it's in the bullet. No, where is it? We get this information when we are shooting that is really messy. Stating about the ammo. Okay, so now when I shoot him, you can see in my dialog screen that the server says 147, 151, 143. So the server on this actually receives it. So the server knows that our controller instigated damage. So what can we do now? We can actually make a custom event, and inside this custom event call it display floating combat text, and this has to run on owning client reliably. So this is something that only the server can trigger. display floating combat text. Okay, and inside here we want to display damage, which is float. Okay, so we just push this, and here on the owning player we will want to display something, so which we have to do right now. So let's go into AGR, no, into AGR examples, blueprints, or UI, and simple health. Let it stay here. We need a new one. Let's make a user interface, widget blueprints. By the way, I'm completely trash with widgets. I was trash with HTML and CSS, and I'm trash with widgets. So this is something I would love to teach you, but I simply am not the guy to do it. UI combat text. So I know that it's quite simple to do animations, but I'm not very good at it. So what we're going to do is just display text. And this text will be displayed perfectly on the middle of this. You know what? We're going to take this canvas panel. We're going to make it smaller, like, can we make a custom size? Yes, custom. So let's make it 200 by 60. Let's make our text size to content. Well, no, it doesn't matter really. Let's make the anchor at the middle. Let's make it 0.5 and 0.5. So this is in the perfectly middle. Let's make it justification to the middle. And let's make it 0, 0, 160 by 40. This is fine. And we'll just say 1. And we're going to go into graph. And we're going to make a variable called damage. And this damage will be float and will be exposed on spawn. Compile, and now I hope we can actually bind it to this float. Yes, we can. Thank you. Compile and save, and that's it. So now this can it also auto destroy itself. That would be awesome, and that would save us a lot of time. Let's go into class defaults or class settings. Class defaults. Okay. Life. No. Okay, so when it gets constructed, we'll just do a delay and destroy, or I have to just remove from parent, and this is basically self. It is destroying the actor, and make this promote to variable time seen or seconds displayed. Let's just make it also exposed on spawn, and let's make this damage 0 and sex display by default 0.5. Okay. Oh, and one more thing, event tick. Nah, this is fine. Like, we should actually make this move on the screen, but just don't bother with it. This is just for show. So we go into controller, and here we'll do a construct widget, make widget, create widget. Yes, it's this one. Combat text, UI combat text, and now this combat text has 2 more values. Owning player is self. This is an owning player, and damage is damage. and sex visibility will be 0.5. This is fine, and that's it. Let's go here, play. So now when this guy in theory deals any damage to any actor, he should display it on the screen, on the middle of the screen for half a second, unless it breaks. Okay, why did it break? Private and previous activity by garbage collector reference by root transpath and what? Okay, I wonder if it will crash again. Really shouldn't, and it shouldn't. Okay, it didn't. So let's just go here. It was just some random error. Let's pick up a weapon, and now when I shoot this guy, nothing happened. Wonder why is that? Let's go to our AGR. Blueprints controller. Is it everything set up as we did, or did it break for some reason? Oh, I know why. How about we add to viewport? Because we haven't displayed our damage indicators. So let's play multiplayer. Let's go with our main guy. Let's pick up a weapon, and we display the damage. But we displayed the pure damage. We didn't take account of the headshots. But the thing is, we can again use it to fetch other values, but we get this hook that allows us to do something once we instigate any damage, and we don't have to really use this value of the damage. We can use something different, but we know when to use it. This is the important part. Okay, yeah, I guess this is it for this video. In the next video we'll be doing more stuff with health system, but it will be just an example to show how to work with object references. So we'll be talking about cas2, about event dispatchers, about components of class, how you can refer to them, and we will talk about tags of objects and components, and we will also talk about blueprint interfaces. So thank you for listening. I hope you will find it helpful with this very simple health system. In the next video we'll move this health system to a component, and we'll do a lot of stuff with it to make it really complex and show you all the possibilities of how to work with interaction between blueprints. Thanks once again. Join us on Discord. Visit my channel. I have a lot of videos I try to post really often, and hopefully you will find something useful for yourself.